Hi everybody, today is one of those very exciting days. I was hardly sleeping when I was thinking about it. It's the day for tea with Pius and Solomon, and we have an amazing subject to discuss. Corporate, having your career in corporate or entrepreneurship. So it's gonna be exciting. My name is Pius Muchiri.
And I'm Solomon Wangwe. Welcome to the tea.
Welcome to the tea. So Solo,
Yeah.
corporate versus entrepreneurship.
Which is which?
Which is which?
So, just for our lovely viewers, I want to give a disclaimer that everything I'm going to say is going to be based on my own personal experience. And I suppose at some point, because this is advice I give people, my kids, anyone who allows me the opportunity to share, I tell them, specifically around finances. I know you and I have had this conversation. Never take financial advice from anyone who's not making several times what you are. That applies to all things in life. Anything you're asking about, make sure you're asking the right people. Mm-hmm. And so at some point, I think you and I will have to drop the kimono, as it were, and tell everyone why they should listen to us if they choose to. But we're grateful that we have the opportunity to share these experiences. So for me, right off the bat, I'll say it wasn't apparent to me from the beginning, but I have a knack for entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. How do I know that? The last time we shot, I shared how my first trip out of Kenya was to South Africa. I was 20.
Yes.
Just before my 20th birthday. Yes. I'd never flown. Yes. Had never left the country. Yes. And I was going down there to visit my first serious girlfriend. I was so sure I was going to marry her and have 11 babies with her. I was so in love with her. That's how motivated I was. And I financed the whole thing myself. Yeah. At 20 years of age. How did I do that? I remember when she left, I was so depressed. I was blowing all this money on the payphones calling. I remember I was days for buying the card for international calls at Haile Selassie, where you have the rows of phone booths.
I don't think these guys remember the phone booths.
Yeah, that was before that time. But I was so depressed. I went home one day and asked my mom and dad. It's like, Mom, Dad, please, can you buy me a ticket to go to SA? I want to go to SA. And they asked me why. I said, I want to go visit Dorothy, is her name. And they looked at me like I had lost my mind. My mom almost, if I wasn't 20, she'd have been whooping me for having the audacity to ask for such a dumb thing. Yeah. My dad looked at me like, I don't know what you're smoking, dude, but nice try. So my buddy Brio, as I mentioned, had an aunt who was bringing factory reject products from the US every 2 to 4 weeks. She's shipping products she had bought from factories that were rejected, but the rejects were for very minor issues, like the wrapping was wrong, or the boxes are weird shape, and she was bringing perfumes, and she would pay us to sell the perfumes. She wanted 2,500 shillings for each one. Anything we collected over and above that was ours, plus she gave us 300 bob commission on each one. I sold those things to everyone I knew. I forgot to mention last time, my dad was my biggest customer. He'd buy like 4 perfumes at once.
Captive market.
And I was charging 5K for each one. Wow. 5 to 6K, depending on the perfume. So my margins were pretty good. Yes. And I saved up enough. I bought the ticket. I remember going to KQ, bought the ticket, came home in the evening. I told my mom and dad, by the way, guys, I'm leaving for SA next week.
I don't need your permission.
And they're like, yeah, right. We told you that's we don't know what's wrong with you, but that's not happening. And I was so arrogant. I slapped the ticket on the coffee table. It's like, I'm good. I don't need your cash. My mom was livid. I had to explain how I raised the money.
Yes.
I told her, but I've been selling perfumes and your husband is my biggest customer. And I think my dad did it out of a sense of pride to support what I was doing, which I was so grateful for. Any sense of style I have, I get from my dad. My dad's like you. He's very keen on appearance and personal grooming. He's the first man I called a heterosexual or metrosexual. The guys who, his hair was always perfect. His tie was, people who wear ties that are a bit squiffy.
Nicely positioned.
Proper samosa shaped tie all the time. My dad is those guys. And he did it just to support me. And so while my mom was pissed, my dad was like, okay, what time is your flight? Like 8:30
Let's
a.m.
move on.
I'll drop you to the airport before I go to work.
Wow.
And on the way to the airport, he probably gave me 3 times the cost of the ticket in pocket money.
Wow.
Just to say, good job, buddy. And that was the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. And it just grew from there. In the US, after I dropped out of college, I am a college dropout. Some of you are looking at me like, what did you say? Why are we here? We're listening to a college dropout. Yes, I am a college dropout. I had to drop out of college. Financial hardship back home didn't allow me to finish. And I found my way flipping houses. I taught myself how to analyze a real estate deal. I bought the course. Remember, I swiped a credit card. I had no business swiping to buy the course. And
that's the one that costed you $2,000.
Yeah.
At what age?
I was 24 at the time.
24.
23, 24.
How many 24-year-olds swipe $2,000? I mean,
in the US,
that's courageous.
All of them, it's cultural in the US. I mean, it got so bad leading up to the 2008 credit crisis. I remember having friends who would show me letters they would get in the mail from various banks and credit card companies with their names on the credit card. They didn't apply, they didn't know who this bank was, but they've sent a credit card in the mail with their names and everything. All you had to do was call the 1-800 number to activate.
Wow.
And famously, some had credit cards issued in their pets' names. So, in the US, when they do census, they'll ask how many people in the household. They say it's a 5-person household because they counted themselves, the 2 kids, and the dog, who has a name. And when they buy these lists, they have no idea which one is a human being and which one is the animal. So they just issue credit cards to everyone. I mean, it was easy. It was easy to get into that trap in the US. Coming from a place where credit was zero to a place where it was so accessible, I completely abused it. Killed my credit immediately because I never paid back the money. But I learned something. And I found myself on this entrepreneurial journey doing real estate. And it's continued on. I've only been employed once in my life.
Wow.
Technically twice, but the first one was a freebie. After high school, my mom was running a clearing and forwarding company on her own. She had quit her employment and started this business. And I was her deputy head of operations, which meant I did everything. I was the guy who made coffee, drove her to the office, made photocopies, took her dictation for letters. I basically did everything. So I don't count that as a proper employment. She paid me 7,000 shillings a month.
That's the only time you've ever been employed?
That was the first time.
Okay.
I was employed.
You were employed?
It was child labor, if you ask me, but my proper first employment was in the US. After the 2008 crisis, when we couldn't buy and sell real estate anymore, I joined a sales company called Smart Circle International. It was a direct sales company. They specialize in selling other people's products. So there was a Salesforce company. It was just company that just had salespeople. And any company could come and say, I need this sold, how many units, this is the pricing, and they would deploy them, and we kept a commission from the sales. I did that for 2 years. And that was my first proper sort of job. And my last place of employment. Because I came back home, and I came back home to marry my girlfriend at the time. I tried to get employment. Remember, I'd been away for 11 years.
Yes.
I'm a college dropout.
Yes.
No one wants to talk to me because I have no papers.
Yes.
I remember sitting with, if I can remember her name, Gishuru, Miss Gishuru.
Yes.
Rosalind Gishuru, I think is her name.
Yes.
At Coca-Cola.
Yes.
A friend got me an appointment with her. She was a very senior at Coca-Cola.
Yes.
And I was in her office. I'd given her my CV.
Yes.
She was so brutal, man. But she was honest. She said, listen, Solomon, you don't have a bachelor's degree. If I was you, I'd go back to school. There's nothing for you here.
Wow. That's harsh.
It was very harsh. Maybe unnecessarily so.
Yeah.
But she was speaking the truth from her perspective. Kenya is a very paper-centric culture.
Yeah.
We inherited that British thing, I need your credentials, otherwise we can't even have a conversation. Whereas in the US, you could make a life without credentials. Because it truly is a land of opportunities. I can tell you, after having lived there for 11 years, it's not an untrue statement. And so coming from that culture to here was a bit of a rude awakening. And so I never got employed. And soon after that, I started a boda business.
Allah, you've done boda business.
Yeah, man.
I'm also learning now. I thought I knew you.
I don't talk about it much, but my wife and I had 150K in savings between the two of us to rub together.
Wow.
Mostly savings from her salary.
Yes.
Because I wasn't employed.
Yes.
And we agreed that we can't leave this money in the bank. Even if we do a fixed deposit account, we're getting 6-7% per annum, less monthly ledger fees, less 15% withholding tax. It's a joke. And then you throw in the inflation, it's a negative return. And so we knew immediately we had to do something with the cash. And I remember I took a month to my shags in Webuye to visit mom and dad, and it struck me how many bodas are in Webuye town. Western Kenya is like this. There's more bikes than human beings. It's insane. It's insane. In fact, driving a vehicle in Webuye is such a liability because the bodas own the roads. And it struck me, wait, there's something happening here. There's an economic activity here that seems to be working for these people. Why don't I own a bike? So I took some 100K. The bikes used to TVS bikes, so were retailing for 78K.
Yes.
And then I bought insurance. I installed an extra foot rack for the passenger because back then guys were just hanging their feet.
This was happening in Webuye.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I bought a bike in Webuye.
One bike.
One bike.
Yeah.
All I could afford. All costs in was about 99,000 shillings plus insurance. Got a local guy to ride the bike, and my idea was this, because I didn't want to do what everyone else was doing, because there's more bikes than people. So how does yours stand out? And I've always been aware that the purpose of business is to serve other human beings and to empower your fellow human beings, not to take advantage of them. And so we asked ourselves, what can we do differently? And we told this guy, listen, how much do you normally pay for the bike owner? Because most bike riders don't own the bike. At least back then, it was too expensive. So someone else would buy the bike, they ride the bike, they pay the owner. In Webuye at the time, it was 400 shillings a day. right? Has to be 400. Whether or not you make money, that's yours.
Yeah.
Give me my 400 shillings. Anything you collect over and above that was theirs.
Yeah.
So they were very motivated. You know, I met one guy who was doing 2K a day.
Wow.
On his border. He's paying the bike owner 400, so he's keeping 1600 a day.
So he's the real owner.
Yeah. So I told the guy, listen, for my bike, if you pay me 400 shillings a day without fail, except for Sunday, because I want you to rest.
Yes.
I won't be a slave driver like your other bike owners.
Yes.
Rest on a Sunday.
Yes.
Spend time with your wife and kids, whatever. You want to sleep, you want to go to the shamba, it's your time.
Yes.
But Monday to Saturday, 400 shillings a day. If you do that for exactly 10 months, without fail, I'll give you the bike. I'll transfer the logbook into your name.
Wow.
And you don't have to pay me anymore.
Wow.
You can burn the bike, you can sell it, whatever, it's yours. And I'll even cover the cost of the transfer.
Explain the math, because I know guys are thinking about the 400 bob, 10 months.
Right,
Yeah.
so if you do 400 bob, for 10 months, roughly, 300 days, you do the math, it's 120K. The bike all in was
90-something K.
90-something K.
Yeah.
And the idea for me was to earn more than the bank was going to give me for my fixed deposit account.
Yes.
Which it was.
Yes.
If you do the math.
Yes.
And I was empowering another human being. I found that to be a very sustainable way to go about it. And I wasn't the one riding the bike.
No.
He's the guy who was out there in the rain, in the sun. Me, I was back in Nairobi.
The guy literally owns the bike now. I mean, that's the mentality.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, what I did, I drafted a 5-page contract with rules and regulations. You can't ride the bike while you're drunk. You can't overload the bike.
No, that's the solo I know.
We have to have order.
Order and structure.
Yeah. I committed to servicing the bike, which was nothing.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, once that guy signed a contract, which I later learned was the first time any of these guys were signing anything called a contract.
Yeah. Wow.
It dignified the process to such an extent that psychologically they owned the bike. Because he knows in 10 months, this is my bike. So he didn't peter with potholes. He didn't overload the thing. He washed it, he kept it well.
Yeah.
So my maintenance costs were next to nothing.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was passive income for me.
Yeah.
And before I knew it, I had 6 bikes after that. I had 4 in Machakos, 1 in Syokimau.
Where did the extra money come from?
So it's a good question, because I didn't have employment. Right? So what happened is, after the second bike, I realized that these guys were having trouble understanding the contract because it was in English. I'm an excellent English writer.
Yeah.
I went to good schools.
Yeah.
But these guys were having trouble. I'd have to explain, okay, this clause says...
In Swahili or...
So I'm explaining to them in Kiswahili, but the contract is in English.
Yes.
Because I can't write in Kiswahili to save my life.
Yes. You didn't use mother tongue?
No. I understand mother tongue, but I don't speak it, and I certainly can't write it. So I figured out very quickly, I need this contract like government documents. The same clause in English and Kiswahili next to each other. So that if you're a Swahili comprehending person and not English, you can understand what you're signing on to. And so I searched around for someone to translate, which turned out to be a lot more difficult than I imagined. A lot of guys were not comfortable writing in Kiswahili.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many people don't know how to write Kiswahili.
Majority of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Unfortunately for me, I happened to be married to a Tanzanian lady. Whose father was a professor. And my father and mother-in-law translated the contract for us for free.
Wow.
And it was the best Swahili I've ever seen. It's even better than the government application forms. And so, third guy read it in Kiswahili. understood everything. It was perfect. Then I got a call. It's the first call I ever got from my father-in-law after marrying her daughter.
Yeah.
I was petrified because, I mean, he's never called.
Yes.
Have I done something wrong? Did his daughter tell him I'm not feeding her well? Like all these things are going through my mind. And he said, hey, Solomon, listen, you know, after we translated that contract, I really like what you're doing. So, you know, I'm old now. All my life I have believed in socio-economic empowerment. I've bought Black Mamba bikes for kids in my village since the day I started working. I've bought laptops for kids. He's a proper giver, very philanthropic guy, very passionate about education and, you know, youth empowerment. And I hadn't thought about that when I sent him the contract. But he said, I really like what you're doing. You're giving these guys a bike. Wow. I want to be part of that. Wow. Would you allow me to partner with you? And wow. I was a bit surprised. And I said, sure. I mean, how am I going to say no? You gave me your daughter. I mean, yeah, a partner on bikes, it's fine. And he said, okay, this is what we're going to do. I would like to purchase 2 bikes to add to your fleet. Wow. Just promise me you're going to give them the bike like you say in your contract. Wow. And I said, absolutely. That's the whole point. And he told me, be in my office on Monday. He used to work at World Agroforestry Center, ECRAF, at the time. Here in Nairobi. Yeah, he was the deputy director there. Yeah. So I went to the office. Actually, no, he had asked me to come on the following Wednesday. This is like a Thursday. Come to my office next Wednesday. On Sunday, he calls and says, Solomon, my plans have changed. I have to leave the country tomorrow evening. So come to my office tomorrow instead of Wednesday. So I showed up. I was on time. He sat me down and he gave me this weird story about how the Chaga community in TZ, which is where he's from, have a strange practice of lying to each other. I was like, man, I knew this deal was too good to be true. I've been pranked. And he told me, you know, for instance, you know, I could go to the village, the neighbor will hear I've come home, they'll come over and invite me for a dinner and they'll tell me tutachinja kuku ama mbuzi. And you get there and you find they did not chinja the mbuzi. Wow. You know, or tunachinja ng'ombe, njoo tusherehekee. And you find they did not chinja ng'ombe. Yeah. I was so confused. I was sitting there, you know. Where is this headed? Where is this conversation headed? You know, and he could tell I wasn't getting his point. And he said, what I mean is this, you know, traditionally, we always under-promise and over-deliver. So instead of finding a cuckoo was slaughtered, you'll find 3 cuckoos were slaughtered. Yeah. Instead of 1 goat, they've slaughtered 2 goats. 2 goats, yeah. So I know I told you I want to buy 2 bikes, but I want to give you cash for 4 bikes. Wow. Double. And that's how my fleet started to grow. Wow. And he said, I don't want any of the money. This is my contribution to what you're doing to empower the young guys that you're giving the bikes. Yes. Keep all the profit, keep all the returns, just promise me you'll give them the bike. Wow. And that's how my border business grew. Wow. Yeah, and shortly after that. Which year was this? This was 2011. 2011, January is when I bought the first bike. Border was just starting. It was just starting. I mean, it was great. Machakos, I was getting 500 bob a day. Nairobi, Syokimau was getting 550 for each bike. Now you are thrust properly into entrepreneurship. 8 p.m. every day, favorite time of the day for me. My M-Pesa notifications were just like my phone was off the hook. 550 has just come in. It was beautiful. And then giving the bike away. So interestingly, the guy in Syokimau, Peter Nyaga was his name. He really took on to this thing. I remember because of his amount, he was getting the bike in 6 months instead of 10. And every 2-3 weeks, he'd send me the full remittance for a month in advance. And I'd ask him, why are you sending for the whole month? You can pay me every day. He said, Solomon, hii pikipiki mimi naitaka. Kama ulinidanganya, I swear. And 6 months came and went, and I, transferred the logbook into his name. The guy could not believe it.
Wow.
Grown man, older than me. He was in tears. His wife called to tell me how her and the kids pray for us
you.
every night.
Wow.
That God would bless us because they've had a steady diet for the last 6 months. They're able to pay for school fees. I mean, stuff I hadn't even thought about.
Yeah.
The impact. You talk about having impact. It was only 100K.
Yeah.
That was doing nothing in the account. For that case, actually, it was a donation from my father-in-law. I had nothing to do
with it,
with the capital.
But the idea was yours,
Yes.
Yeah. So that's where the power is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so Peter Nyaga took the first bike, and he asked for a second one. And I got him the second one and asked him, what are you going to do with the first one? Unajua hiyo system yako ni mzuri sana. Nimeajiri mwingine ananilipaga vile nilikuwa nakulipa. Sasa hii ni yangu, yeye ananilipaga. I was like, this guy gets the assignment, and he did the same thing with the second bike. That guy inherited 4 bikes.
What?
After the 4th bike, he was like, Sasa Solomon, hii biashara naona vile inaendelea, boda ni mingi sana. Si tufanye madri. Hiyo system yako na madri. I was like, let me think about that. We never did it, but the guy understood.
You gave him an idea and he ran with it.
He did.
Yeah.
And he took full advantage. So what he did with the second bike, he sold it and bought land in his home, Embu. Yeah, he bought land. He bought 3 acres with the revenue from that second bike.
Wow.
And was growing bananas and things. So now he had a secondary income stream.
This is the family that was praying for you.
Yes. Wow. So, after that, I was convinced that for me, the path was going to be entrepreneurship in one form or another.
Yeah.
Because I had more fulfillment from that.
Yeah.
And not to say that corporate is not right. That's the path I found myself on. And I'm a big advocate for that because it does things to you, gives you an opportunity to exercise self-discipline. Because, if you don't make money, it's your fault.
Yeah.
You write your own paycheck.
Yes.
So there's no one to blame.
Yes.
If the tunes and if the money is not rolling in. And I like that. I like to be, I'm a bit of a control freak.
Yes.
I'll be the first one to admit that. I like to control as much as possible.
Yes.
Because that means I don't waste time blaming someone or something else. I know it's me and what do I need to do to fix it? And I can do it now. It's something I can help.
Yeah.
I mean, there's limitations to that theory to life because some things are just out of your control. But I love that about entrepreneurship. Being able to have impact on other human beings and that sort of thing. I could go on and on for weeks, but that's a long answer to your question.
No, I mean, everyone here can agree with me. This guy doesn't sound like a college dropout. He sounds like a Harvard graduate to me. Not just a bachelor's, but a master's.
Thank you for saying so.
I mean, it's I've had the privilege of watching you do your thing, how you do your thing, your style of doing things, your standard in terms of excellence, and it's incredible. You've done much better than guys who've gone to the so-called Ivy League schools. So, and I think the point we're trying to make here is that for anybody who has not had the opportunity of going to these schools, the Nairobi University, the whatever people are going to, and it's decorated their CVs. You have no reason to be intimidated.
None
in fact, your biggest disadvantage set you up for your best advantage. I think God just sees these things. If you had the papers, you probably would have taken a very different path, which would not have given you the satisfaction that you have today?
Yeah,
on
maybe,
entrepreneurship?
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.